Thank you. My father would have been considered a troublemaker in most families, but most families weren't my father's. Despite the fact that he sold guns, dealt drugs, did drugs, and who knows what else, in his family he would be considered a saint compared to his father and his siblings. My father died when I was 22, and I made it up to Kansas City in time to stand at the side of his bed as he took his last breath. The day after the funeral, or the day after his death, my sister arrived in Kansas City on the train from Chicago, and for two 20-year-old people, or 20-somethings who had never put together a funeral, we put together a pretty good one. A couple days after the funeral, we went to go pick up our father's ashes. The funeral director came up with a box about this big, and it contained our father. And it was just kind of a strange concept to think, there's Dad the size of like a cantaloupe. It really freaked my sister out, so I kind of calmed her down, said goodbye to the funeral director, went out in the car, and we sat there with the box between us. Now, my sister, despite having a really rough time, she always had kind of a macabre streak. When we were little kids, my beloved cat died, and while she was there for me, and she helped me bury the cat, she was also the person who, a year later, said, "You want to go in the backyard and dig up Frisky, see what he looks like?" So it didn't surprise me when she looked at the box and said, "You want to open it and see what Dad looks like?" And of course I wanted to open the box and see what Dad looked like, because we paid for him. I mean, we were obligated. And they know that you're going to take a look in the box, because when we opened it, our father was in a clear plastic bag with a little twist tie on top. And I always thought a cremated body would look like ashes, like something you'd see in a grill, but they really look more like kitty litter. And my sister had to have a better look, so she takes the bag out of the box, and we're shaking it, looking around, wondering what the pieces are. I'm sitting there thinking, are those black parts his diseased lungs that finally took him down for the count? My sister decided, okay, we've had enough, let's put him back in the box. And I'm sure people here, when they were kids, at some point in their life, to get the little prize out of the cereal box, you take the bag out, you maybe pour a bowl, dig down, you try to put the bag back in the box and it didn't fit. It was kind of like that. We put her back, he wouldn't go back in the box. Now, I get my patience from my mom's side of the family. My sister, she got her impatience from our father's side of the family. So instead of gently working them back into the box, she forced the issue. And it was kind of like, boom! And all of a sudden, it was like a smoke bomb went off inside the car. The whole interior of the car was full of our father's ashes. I jumped out the side. I looked back to see what my sister had done, and she was leaned over, and I thought she was throwing up. And I ran around, and what had happened is she put her seatbelt on so she couldn't get away like I did. She wasn't throwing up, she was hacking, because when she shoved the bag in, the top blew open, and the ashes, it was kind of like a volcano, went straight up into her mouth. So the hacking sound was my sister spitting our father's ashes onto the parking lot. So I helped her up, we had a good laugh, and then she finally broke down, cried only the way that you can cry when you've lost something so badly that it hurts. And then we started laughing some more. And we laughed the whole way back to where we were going, and I don't think my sister would have been laughing if she realized that wouldn't be the only time she was going to be covered in our father's ashes. At the end of that month, I drove up to Chicago because my father wanted to be scattered in Lake Michigan. And we made it to Lake Michigan, Montrose Harbor, if anybody from Chicago's here. Hey! And to scatter his ashes on Christmas night. Now, I'd been in Dallas since I'm a teenager, and I forgot how cold it gets in Chicago. So I wasn't really dressed for it, but my sister, she was warm. Because in the 3 weeks after our father died, she went through the insurance money, spending several $1,000s on cocaine, and the rest of it on this full-length suede coat. So she was really warm, and I wanted that coat because I was freezing. And I wasn't the only thing freezing, because when we got up to the water line, Montrose Harbor was frozen. It's like, what the hell are we going to do? My sister, another thing she got from my father's side of the family, is this sense of panic when things don't go right. So she's freaking out, and I just said, why don't we go out on this pier and see if there's water out there? It's Lake Michigan, maybe. Get out there, and we were glad to see the open waters of Lake Michigan before us. Now, driving up to Chicago, I had been thinking of things to say. It just seemed like a fitting thing to do. But when the moment came, we didn't say anything. We just opened the box, took the bag out, each took a corner, and we scattered his ashes in Lake Michigan. It would have been this beautiful, perfect moment had the wind Chicago's known for not blown back on us at the moment we scattered the ashes. At the end of the pier was a little pump house, so I was spared. But my sister, there was kind of like this vortex, and the vortex picked up our father's ashes and totally covered her from head to toe at the moment we scattered his ashes. Now, my sister has her theory about this. While our father, an addict himself, which is one of the reasons he died at such a young age, he would have almost possibly even approved of spending that much money on cocaine, but it would have really pissed him off to think that she spent close to $800 on this coke. So my sister was convinced that it was his way of getting even with her for that purchase. I dusted her off and we walked back toward the shore. And as we walked along, I thought about how weird it was that now my father's only going to exist in stories like the one I'm telling you. I thought about how weird it was, one moment he's alive, next moment he's dead. But I also thought about how lucky I was to spend that month pretty much with my big sister, who, made it kind of fun. When we got to the shore, I felt something kind of brushing up against my face. And I thought it was initially the ash coming off of her coat, but it turned out that it had started to snow. Now, since I moved to Dallas, I missed the snow of Chicago. My sister eventually cleaned up her act, moved to Dallas. She missed the snow as well. When we were little kids, nothing beat a snowy morning to us. 7 years ago, yesterday morning, it was snowing in Dallas. I know this because 7 years yesterday morning, I drove through the snow to stand at the side of my sister's bed as she drew her last breath. Like I said, unfortunately, she took after our father.